Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, my dear friends. As the participants are joining this webinar from different time zones. So, greetings to all of you guys. And first of all, I welcome to all of you to joining this live webinar on behalf of Koenig Solutions. So, my dear friends, today we are going to discuss the very rising technology of VMware, which is NSX. Because you know that in our traditional data center, we were facing a lots of challenges in scalability of our networking, right? Let's suppose we want to just scalable our networking on multiple platforms also. So, this is very typical challenges which one we are facing. So now we are going to discuss today, which is very rising technology, which is NSX. So before starting this one, let me introduce myself. So my dear friends, as you can see over the screen also, my name is Ankur Kumar. I'm a VMware certified instructor. I'm also certified instructor for EC Council. I'm also certified instructor for Carbon Black. When I comes to my experience, I have more than 8+ years of experience in this training industry. I delivered a lots of trainings for different technologies like ethical hacking, penetration testing, virtualization, Linux, and for obviously the virtualization. Okay, for different vendors like EC Council, CompTIA, Red Hat, VMware. Okay, so now this is all about me, and you can see, my dear friend, I'm also certified VCIX in network virtualization. Okay, so let's proceed here and let me discuss what is the agenda for this particular webinar, which we are going to be discuss here. Even that this one will be only for 1 hour, but I will try to give you a very clear picture about the architecture, functions, and features that what are the benefits and why this technology is very rising and popular technology. So let's move here. Let me try to fix, I think, oops. Yes. So you can see that what is the agenda for today's webinar. So first of all, we will be discuss here what is actually NSX, because you can see that the webinar is on this particular technology. So we'll discuss what is actually NSX and what are the features which are really making it on top. Because today, nowadays, this is actually very rising top, technology. Then we'll discuss what are the particular features we have. So we have some particular features which are really making it as a market leader nowadays. Even that VMware is already the market leader vendor because it is providing multiple solutions, okay, which are really very popular and very rising technologies. So this NSX is not only providing the network virtualization, it is also providing multiple security features. And we can manage all these features through the single console. So that's why we will be discussing here that how we what are the networking features which can be managed, which can be used in this NSX environment. We will also be discussing here about all these security features. Okay, so what are the security features can be implemented in our data center? Then we'll discuss the very important thing about the architecture, because obviously architecture should also be clear. So I have also added here one very interesting topic. So I will just explain the entire architecture on whiteboard session. And then later at the end, we will be discussing here about the exam and certification. That is, after completing this particular training program, for which one certifications you can proceed. Obviously, certifications are really very important for all of us. Okay, so which one exam certification we can proceed. And at the last, we will be discuss about question and answers. So if you guys are actually having any questions and answers, so you can please be ready for that. You can prepare and you can ask in the end of this particular webinar. So let's proceed here. First of all, what is actually NSX? So my dear friends, why I am telling that this is very rising and very popular technology. In our traditional data center, we are actually facing a lots of challenges with the agility of this particular data center, with the scalability also. If let's suppose you would like to scalable, if let's suppose you want to extend your networking for multi clouds, then this is a very big challenges with our traditional networking systems. But this VMware NSX will allow you to configure this particular networking for your on-premises environment also, and you can also extend this particular networking for multiple clouds, for multi-cloud environment also. Okay, Even that it will also allow you to manage multi-tenant environment. So NSX is one of the technology which one will allow you to configure the network virtualization and security features from the single console. That's the very interesting and very important thing which are really making it greater. Because let's suppose, my dear friends, in our data center, obviously we need to implement a lots of security solutions. But whenever we are implementing these security solutions, every particular security solution having its different concept. Every security solution is actually having its different graphical user interface. So every time you need to proceed for the training, and obviously every team members cannot manage all these particular security components, because everyone is actually having its different concept, different component, different agent, and different processing systems. So that's why it's very typical to manage sometime. But this NSX will allow you to manage all the security features and networking features from the single console. So that's why these things are actually really making it greater. So it is one of the platform which one will allow you to manage the network virtualization and security in your environment. Okay, which can be configured. What are the use cases? This is a very important thing, because why we are actually using NSX, why we should use it? Obviously because it is actually having a lots of use cases. If let's suppose you want to manage only the security of your data center, then my dear friends, obviously it is actually having a lots of security features. So whenever the security word will come into picture, so 100% the firewall will be on the top. So in this NSX environment, it is also supported two type of firewalls: distributed firewall and gateway firewall. Okay, so firewall can be used to filter the traffic. So in this NSX environment, we have two type of traffic. The first one is east-west traffic, which one we are also calling overlay traffic. The second traffic type is north-south traffic, which one we are also calling the VLAN traffic. So obviously, we need to protect both type of traffic in our data center. So distributed firewall can be used to protect east-west communication. So we can filter the east-west traffic with the help of distributed firewall. Second, we have the north-south traffic. If we would like to protect our north-south traffic, then we can use the gateway firewall. And this is only the starting of the security features. What are the additional features? It is also having IDS and IPS. IDS and IPS, intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system. So these are also the very interesting security components. And my dear friend, it is actually supported the behavior based IDS and IPS also. Whenever we come to some more advanced features, so it is also having some additional features like NSX malware prevention. So NSX malware prevention is one of the particular technology which is protecting our data center against multiple type of malware threats. So we are actually having the different type of malwares like virus, worms, trojan, spyware, ransomware. Okay, so which may be infected to our data center. So NSX malware prevention is one of the technology which is protecting our data center against these kind of malware threats. Then obviously we are also having here one very popular solution, which is NSX intelligence. So this is also one of the inbuilt feature of NSX, okay, which is actually just collecting the data, analyzing the data, then it is actually giving the recommendation to implement micro segmentation in your environment. So microsegmentation is one of the particular very interesting mechanism which can be implemented with the help of firewall route in our environment. So which can be reduce the attack surface. Okay, and it is providing the granular level control. Okay, so that we can secure our data center. The next one we have NSX NDR. Okay, network detection and response. This is also one very powerful solution. It is collecting all the data and it is using some AI and ML based techniques analyzing the data. If there is any particular incident in our environment has been detected, then it is creating the complete attack visualization for that one and providing to the security team, so that security team can take the action accordingly. Even that it is providing the complete blueprint, what was the threat, and now how many of the particular host has been infected, what is the attack stage. All these type of the informations are actually providing in this particular NDR. Even that we are also having some more particular security features, like that it is also using TLS inspection. Okay, it will also provide you the security for your layer 7 traffic inspection. So multiple security features we have, but obviously we will be discuss only the major features here, because this is only for 1 hour live webinar. Okay, second one, multi-cloud networking. So it will also allow you to configure the networking for on-premise environment or on any particular public cloud, like maybe AWS or Azure we are actually having, and we would like to implement the networking from this particular NSX, so it is supported. Automation. It is also providing the very interesting wizard-based configuration. So what actually we can do, we can simply define the configuration and then it will be start automation, automated deployment of that particular task. So it is also reducing the chances of the error, because whenever we are only we just define the configuration and then it will be automatic deployment. So this is also providing the automations. Even that we can also automate multiple tasks in our NSX. Then see here about the cloud native applications. Okay, so this is also providing the networking and security support for microservices environment. If let's suppose, because nowadays containers, Kubernetes are the very rising technology which is using by developers. So obviously we need to provide the networking and security support for that environment also. So it is also supported the networking and security components, security features for all these microservices environment as well as also. So these are the use cases for this of this NSX. So whenever we discuss about the version, right now the latest version is actually running for NSX version 4.x. Okay, even that lots of additional features are also introduced in this NSX version 4.x also. Now let's discuss about the features. Whenever we come to the features, so we are having the multiple features here, and these features are actually categorized as per particular different categories. If you can see, we have the platform based feature, we have networking based feature, we have security and services based feature, automation, operations, and troubleshooting based feature. So let me just giving you the basic overview about all these particular features here. So whenever we come to the platform-based feature, the first and very important thing that it is providing a very interesting, you know, GUI, graphical user interface, where we can define the entire networking and security configuration for our data center. Okay, so it will provide the very interesting HTML5 GUI. Okay, for this particular management. Now, if we will discuss about the support for the servers, so if let's suppose in our environment, we also want to host some of the particular application on bare metal servers. So no problem. It is also supporting the networking for the bare metal servers. Whenever we comes to the virtual machine and containers, as I already informed you, that it is also supported for the virtual machine and containers. All these particular environments are actually supported for this networking. Now, from this NSX version 4.x, this is also the newly introduced feature, DPU-based acceleration. So now our this NSX is also supported for smart NIC. So these DPUs are the smart NIC. So what actually we can do? We can also configure now this NSX with smart NIC, and obviously because smart NIC having its own CPU memory, so it can enhance the performance. So we can get a good performance with this NSX environment. And the very interesting feature is federation. So let's suppose if you have deployed the multiple sites in different geographical locations, and you would like to implement the same networking and security configuration, and you want to stretch it across multiple sites. So my dear friends, this federation will also allow you to configure that type of the solution. We can just extend, we can stretch our networking and security solution across multiple sites also. Now, whenever we discuss about the networking based feature, so we are actually having two type of the traffic here. One is overlay traffic, second is VLAN traffic, overlay and VLAN, because it is actually using one tunneling mechanism to forward the traffic from one transport node to other transport node. And what is this, that tunneling mechanism? That tunneling mechanism is actually Geneve. So it is using the Geneve mechanism. So Geneve is one of the tunneling mechanism which is using which is running on UDP and using the port number 6081. Okay, so all these particular traffic which is flowing and using this Geneve, that one will be called overlay traffic or east-west traffic. Okay, and that traffic which is going to the outside to the physical environment, that one will be called VLAN traffic or north-south traffic. So we are actually having two type of traffic here. So it will allow us to configure the overlay and VLAN backend logical switching. Even that we are also having the very interesting labs Okay, because why this training is also really very important. Whatever the concept, whatever the features we will discuss in theoretical session, we will also test all these particular features into the labs. And I always believe that whatever you are discussing in theoretically doesn't matter until you will not be completed in practicals. Because if whatever you are testing, what are the feature you are testing in the lab environment, so you are getting the hands-on based experience, and that things you are really getting. Next thing you can see, it is also supported for the bridging. If let's suppose you would like to connect any particular servers, virtual machines which are running in VLAN backend network, which are not the part of NSX but having the same subnet, we can configure it. Distributed routing. So in this NSX environment, it is actually supported for static and dynamic, both type of routing. Static routing is the complete manual process. That is, we can define the static routing, that is the manual routing. But second, it is also supported these two routing protocols which are really popular and powerful routing protocol, BGP and OSPF. Earlier, it was supported only for BGP, but from NSXP version 3.1.1, it is also supported now OSPF. So these two dynamic routing protocols are also supported here. Whenever we come to these particular failure detection mechanism, so it is also using this BFD to detect any kind of the failure in this environment. It will also allow you whenever, let's suppose you want to define the rate limiting or the multicasting, so it will also support it for that one. VRF Lite is really a very interesting feature if you are planning to configure the isolation on your layer 3. That is, it will allow you to host multiple tier 0 gateways without deploying the additional edge nodes. What are these concepts will also be discussed, because that one will be the quite bit lengthy. Now we'll be discuss here about the security and services based feature. So whenever we discuss these features, because I told you that NSX is not only providing the network virtualization, it will also allow you to manage the security feature also of your data center from single console. So you can see, my dear friends, here, it will allow you to configure the gateway firewall, which can be used to protect north-south traffic, north-south communication. Second one, it will be the distributed firewall. Okay, distributed firewall will allow you to configure the east-west communication, east-west traffic. Malware prevention is one of the very powerful technology. I told you which one will allow you to configure, okay, allow you to prevent against multiple type of the malware threats. IDS IPS, intrusion detection system and prevention system, it is working on the basis of signature database. But nowadays, IDS and IPS is also very smart. It is also doing the behavior-based detection mechanism. Okay. Then next one we have here, you can see that URL filtering is also supported here. FQDN analysis also supported here. Then NSX intelligence, I told you, very powerful solution, which is collecting the data, analyzing the data, and then providing the recommendation to implement micro segmentation in our environment. It is also supported some additional network features. Let's suppose if you are planning to configure the network address translation, DNS, DHCP, and NAT64. NAT64 will also allow you to implement the communication between the IP version 6 to IP version 4. If let's suppose your clients are actually configured with IP version 6 and your server side is actually configured with IP version 4, and still you would like to allow the communication, so we can configure the NAT64, which is also one of the inbuilt feature of this NSX. And obviously, to secure our communication, it is also providing you to implement the IPsec VPN and layer 2 VPN. So that is, we can also secure our data, because IPsec VPN is not only the single protocol. It is also using it is a combination of multiple protocol and hashing algorithms, it is actually using to protect the communication. And layer 2 VPN can be used to extend the layer 2 across multiple sites. NSX NDR, I told you that this is also one powerful solution, which is collecting the data and analyzing. The campaigns are actually running using some AI and ML techniques. If any particular threat, any incident has been detected, then it will provide the attack visualization to the security team. So these are some particular features we have on different platform based. Now, some features are on automation, operation, and troubleshooting. Obviously, automation. If let's suppose you would like to integrate here any particular third-party solutions. Okay, maybe any, let's suppose any particular, syslog server you want to integrate with this NSX. Maybe let's suppose you would like to integrate some any next generation firewalls. Okay, maybe any endpoint security solutions. So it is also supported for this application program interface. So we can easily access that one, and we can be integrated any third-party solution with this particular NSX. Then it will also allow you to configure the tag-based grouping, because let's suppose whenever we are configuring the firewall rules, policies, obviously that can be applied on multiple objects. And whenever you would like to apply it on multiple objects, so obviously you need to create the groups. So you can apply the tags also. Let's suppose these all are my web server, app server, DB server. So simply you can define that I want to create the group of all these particular machines, which is actually having that specific tag. So automatically it will find out the as per the criteria, it can create the groups, and then we can apply the firewall policies also there. So we can create the security grouping on basis of tag based. We can define the criteria. Now it is supported the very nice inventory where we can create the groups, we can manage, we can also define some reasons in case of federation. Operation based features. So obviously it will allow you to configure the RBAC. Okay, role-based access control, because obviously in our environment, we cannot give the full access to all these particular user accounts. So accordingly, we need to assign the limited access to the different user accounts. So we are already having some pre-configured roles in this environment. Otherwise, we can also create some custom roles, and accordingly, we can provide the permissions to my user accounts. Then I told you that it is also having the very interesting wizard-based configuration. Whatever the configuration you want to implement, it will give you the complete wizard. We can simply define the configuration, apply it. Then it will be automated that specific task. It will provide you the very interesting dashboard where you can monitor entire infrastructure. Okay, you can check the logs, you can monitor, you can check the activities there. Now, if let's suppose you would like to take the backup and you want to restore the backup, so it will also support for that particular to take the backup and to restore the backup. Whenever I come to the troubleshooting based feature, in this troubleshooting based features, my dear friend, if let's suppose you want to mirror the traffic, so it is supported for port mirroring. If let's suppose you want to configure the trace flow, you want to just trace your packet. Okay, you want to analyze the particular packet. So we can configure the trace flow. It is also supported and will give you the information about every particular point to point. So on every particular point where you can just capture the packet also, it is giving all these information, how your packet is traveling from source to destination. And that's really a very amazing feature, which I really always like. Network topology views. Okay, so whatever the networking objects you are actually creating in NSX environment, so simply just it will be always visible in your GUI. So you have created, let's suppose you created the switch, you created the logical routers, and you have connected the workloads there. So entire topology will be displayed in the UI. So this feature I always really like. So you can easily troubleshoot also. You can find out, oh, that this machine is not connected to this logical switch or this to this gateway. You can identify here. It is also supported the very interesting log bundles, because obviously whenever we are saying the troubleshooting, then first of all, what we will do, we will check the logs. What is the actual problem? So we will check with the logs. So it is actually supported for the logs also. Then alarms, and it is also you can also monitor the entire dashboard. So now let me discuss about this particular architecture. So better think that I will show you this particular complete architecture on my whiteboard session. Okay, so let me open here the Microsoft Paint, and guys, I will draw the complete architecture of this particular NSX. Okay, and you will be really feel better that how this particular traffic is actually flowing. So whenever you are planning to configure this NSX in your environment, then my dear friend, we need to deploy the NSX manager. And what are these NSX managers? NSX managers are the pre-configured appliances which can be configured in the form of virtual machine. Okay, so let's suppose I am deploying these particular three NSX manager nodes. Even that VMware also giving the recommendation that if you are planning to configure the NSX manager in your environment, then you must deploy three NSX manager nodes in your environment. So right now, let's suppose I am deploying here these three NSX manager virtual machine. So this is also the requirement to configure the cluster. Okay, this is also the requirement. We need to deploy three NSX manager nodes, not less than three, not more than three. So now these three NSX manager machines I deployed. Every NSX manager machine, it is actually having its own, its some components. And what are all these components? It is actually having three components. The first one component is policy. Okay. Second one component is manager. Third one component we have here controller, and it is also having every node also having one curfew DB, which is we are actually calling configuration database. Okay, so let's suppose this is my configuration database here. So every node also having its curfew DB. Oh, yes. Okay, so now let me create. This is the database here. Okay, don't take it seriously with my drawing. Okay, so this is the curfew DB I configured here. Let me define the naming also here. So this is the single NSX manager virtual machine which is actually holding these components. So first one component name is policy component. I will also define the use cases for all these components. The second component is actually the manager component. Okay. Third one component is controller. So in NSX environment, actually we are having these particular two type of user interface, policy and manager. What is the use of these use cases? Most of the features are supported by policy, which is the default UI, but few features are not supported by manager. Like that, policy is supported for federation, but manager is not supported. Policy is supported for IDS, IPS, and a lot of security solution. Manager is not supported. But manager is supported for bridge firewall, policy is not supported. So that's why we have two type of the user interface. So user can directly connect it to policy also, to manager also. Next component we have controller. Controller is really very important component which is managing all these logical switching, logical routing, and the firewall table configurations. And last one is the curfew DB. This is the persistent database which is actually holding here all these particular configuration, and this configuration will be syncing here. So now this is the first node which I deployed here. So whenever you are planning to build this technology in your environment, then simply what actually you can do, you need to just deploy 3 NSX manager nodes. Okay, so second NSX manager nodes I deployed here. Okay, and now I'm going to deploy the third one node also here. Okay, this is my third node here. I'm going to deploy my third node also here. So this is the third node which I deployed here. Okay, so I deployed 3 NSX manager nodes. Let me use the eraser here because this line is actually already added here. Let me remove it and let me copy it again. That will be good here. Okay, so I deployed 3 NSX manager nodes here. So this is my node B and node C. So whenever you will deploy these 3 nodes together, then they will form one cluster, which is we are considering NSX management cluster. So now these are 3 nodes. So let me assign the IP address and the name of these particular nodes also together. So let's suppose this is my node A, which is having 192.168.10.20. Okay, this is the first node which I configured here. Okay, so this is the second node which I'm going to configure here. The second node is actually here, which is node B and having 192.168.10.21. And third one node will have, let's suppose, 22 IP address. So now I prepared this particular cluster here. So node C is actually here, which is 192.168.10.22. Okay, so these are particular 3 nodes we deployed, and this particular cluster, my dear friends, we are actually calling NSX management cluster. This is NSX management cluster. But now, what are the use of all these particular, components and how they are actually working? Let me explain here. So in this NSX environment, we are actually having these multiple type of plane also. What are the use cases of this plane? To understand this particular architecture, so we are having these planes. So let's suppose this is actually my data plane. So my data plane is actually here. All these particular type of workload is actually running here. So let's suppose we have here, this is my ESXi hypervisor, which is actually running here. Let's suppose there is any bare metal server. Let's suppose this is any edge node here. Because whenever you are planning to deploy this NSX in your environment, then we have edge node and manager appliances, which are really very important. But so we have these particular 3 type of plane. The first one plane is actually we have management plane. In management plane number 1, which is management plane. Okay, this management plane is actually the combination of these 2 components, policy and manager. Second plane we have CCP, central control plane. This central control plane having 2 components. The first one is controller, and second one is here LCP. Okay, so now this is LCP here. LCP will be residing in our data plane. So third one plane is the data plane. So finally, if you can see, my dear friend, the data plane is actually the important, because entire workload is actually running inside this data plane. So this is actually my, if I will be defined here, so this is actually my data plane here. Let me define here. This is a data plane. And this is the management plane, which is the combination of these two protocols, policy and manager. This CCP is actually the combination of controller, and LCP will be residing inside your ESXi hyper, inside every transport nodes. So whenever we will prepare our ESXi hypervisor to participate in NSX environment, at that particular time, one very important agent will be installed in every transport node. And the name of this agent will be NSX proxy agent. This NSX proxy agent is actually holding here. This NSX proxy agent is actually holding here. What I can say, this is actually holding LCP also. NSX proxy agent, which is also managing the connectivity between our NSX management plane and between this particular, what I can say, between this data plane here. So finally, can you see in our data plane, our all the type of workload is actually running here. So that's the reason that all these particular type of workload, all these type of configuration will be residing inside this data plane. So this is actually my LCP, which is one of the component of this NSX proxy. Okay, so this is one of the component of this NSX proxy, and here all these particular configurations are actually storing here. Okay, so now what will be happen here? How this configuration will be accessed? So now if you can see, if this is any particular user account and would like to define any configuration, okay, so this is any user who want to define any configuration. So he can also directly connect it to any node, maybe node A, node B, node C. But my dear friends, if he will be trying to connect with any one of these nodes, so that one will not be a particular highly available environment. Because if let's suppose my user is connected to this node and defining the configuration, let's suppose if this node has been failed in that particular condition, what will be happen here, guys? So the user cannot be connected to this one or to this one. It's not possible automatically. So in that condition, what actually we can do here, we need to configure one cluster VIP here. Okay, so we will be configure here one cluster VIP. And let's suppose my cluster VIP is actually here. I'm configuring, let's suppose cluster VIP is 192.168.10.50. This is the cluster VIP I just configure here. So I will be configure here one cluster VIP. Okay, so whenever we will configure this cluster VIP, at that particular time, one election process will be happen here. Which one will be used? Zookeeper mechanism. So this is my cluster VIP here, and at that time, one election process will be start here. It will be used zookeeper mechanism, and one node will become leader node. Zookeeper mechanism. Okay, it is a third party mechanism. This is not a VMware based mechanism. At that particular time, so now this user will be connected to this particular cluster VIP, and let's suppose this is the leader node, right? So what will be happen here? Let's suppose this is the leader node. So this cluster VIP will be mapped here. So if this user would like to define any configuration, let's suppose user want to create the firewall rule. So he will be access maybe any UI or API, and then will define the configuration and will submit. Whenever this user will submit the configuration, it will be received by this cluster VIP to this particular leader node, and then it will be received by this policy. Policy will forward this particular node to manager, and this manager will forward to this Corfu DB, okay, to this Corfu DB, and also forward it to controller. So controller is actually maintaining all the tables here, routing table, firewall table, switching tables, and then will forward this one to this particular LC. This LCP will forward this particular configuration to respected VM kernel module. This VM kernel module will implement this configuration inside this particular ESXi hypervisor, and then it will be updated back that okay, this has been implemented to NSX proxy. Then NSX proxy will update back to this to the management plane. Okay, this one was the configuration which has been successfully implemented in this particular environment. Okay, so this is the way how this particular configuration will be implemented and entire architecture. What are all these components we have and how this particular data will be flow. And this is actually using the TCP port number 1235 to communication between the controller and LCP each other. And this NSX management plane, because they both are the combination of management plane. So user can directly connect it to policy also, to manager also. And this one will be used 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this TCP protocol 1, 2, 3, 4 to communicate with NSX proxy, management plane and NSX proxy. So you can see this entire architecture is actually, entire configuration will be residing inside our transport nodes. Now, but can you see here that this is the complete architecture and every component is working here. And they all are the component of this cluster. So that's why entire configuration will be same to each other. Second thing, if let's suppose now one node will be failed, then the election will be start between node A and B, A and C, and let's suppose this time C will become leader. So this node will be, this cluster VIP will be automatically landing to this particular node C. So the benefit that is now we are actually maintaining the highly available environment. So this is the complete architecture of this particular NSX. Even that here we can also manage like the load balancer, we want to make all active. Okay, but that one will be the quite bit lengthy part here. So this is the complete architecture of this particular NSX. So as I told you that whenever you are planning to configure this NSX in your environment, these two are major component, NSX manager and NSX edge node. NSX manager will provide you, NSX manager will provide you the complete management console from where you can just define and you can implement all these type of configuration. NSX edge node will allow you to manage all these particular networking services in our environment. And this NSX edge node will also providing the connectivity to the physical environment. Okay, so that's why these two are very important, top important appliance whenever you are planning to implement NSX technology. And that's the reason that they both must be configured in the form of cluster to maintain the highly available environment. So you can see that this is my NSX management cluster, which is holding three NSX manager node, node A, B, and C, which is making management and control plane inside the cluster. Then finally, our all the traffic is actually the part of data plane. It can be any private cloud or it can be any public cloud. All the virtual machine, containers, ESXi host, okay, all these are actually hosting in the data plane. So finally, that is our management cluster is also the part of data plane. But to understand the architecture, it is actually running outside of this data plane and then sending this particular configuration. Finally, overall configuration will be implemented inside this particular data plane, whatever we are actually defining, because our workloads are running inside the data plane and we are defining, we're managing the networking security for the data plane component. So this is the complete architecture of this NSX. So can you see right now how this particular communication will be there? So you can see, first of all, this particular user will send the particular user will submit the request. So reverse proxy will be used for the authentication purpose. So user will be authenticated, will define the credentials through the proxy, and then it will be received on this particular by this policy. So obviously, because user can define the configuration directly to policy or manager, so will be receive a policy. Policy will push this configuration to manager, manager to CCP, center control plane. Then this CCP will forward this configuration to this NSX proxy, which is actually holding the LCP. This appliance proxy hub APH is one of the particular cluster service. This is the cluster service which is also managing the communication between our management plane and the data plane. And now this LCP will forward this configuration to the respected VM kernel module. And then this VM kernel module will implement this configuration and update it back to NSX proxy. Then this NSX proxy will update it back to this particular management plane that, okay, this configuration has been implemented and it will be visible in our NSX UI that this has been done. So this is the complete architecture and the features which I discussed so far. So now, my dear friends, because here the time was very short, so I just discussed here about all these particular features, the use cases, and the architecture of this NSX. Now, obviously, after completing this particular training, we can also proceed for the exam. So it is also having the very interesting and very popular exam, which is the professional level exam. Okay, so after completing this training, we can join this particular professional level program, which is the name of this exam is VCP NV, VMware Certified Professional in Network Virtualization. Okay, so this is the latest exam code. The version 2 is actually running there. The exam, this can be in language, sorry, this can be in English and Japanese, both language. Okay, the duration for this exam will be 135 minutes. It is having total 70 questions. All these questions are actually multiple choice questions. Okay, so you need to find out the correct answer. The Exam passing score is 300. That is, you need to achieve total 60% passing score out of 300 out of 500. Okay, so I told you it is actually having the multiple choice question or multiple selection choice questions, maybe. Okay, so this is the complete all about this particular examination also. And after completing this exam, VMware will also allocate you these particular badges, which is the VCPNV, which can be shared on any particular social media platform or maybe on your resume or LinkedIn profile. So this is all about this particular exam and this particular what I can say, this particular architecture features and this about this particular very rising technology VMware NSX, okay, which is nowadays Broadcom NSX. Okay, so finally we have